Well, starting tomorrow, the McKinney Center is encouraging anyone with a story to tell to share those stories with them during their listening project. Here to share the story of how this listening project will lead to an even bigger project is Jules Corriere. Jules, it's great to have you back on the show.
It's good to see you again, Amy Lynn.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
And you're starting it out by encouraging people to share their stories.
You know, this is a time we're coming out of having gone to see and visit people and hear stories that have been handed down. Maybe we sat at the Christmas table and heard that story for the 10th or 11th time. And there's a reason why we keep hearing these stories, is there's some kind of survival value to it. There's some kind of a connection to it. We want to sit down and we want to listen to those stories, because these family stories and these personal stories are what we're going to use to build our next community play with. And I'm really excited about that.
That is wonderful. So you're taking these stories and then you're going to turn around and present these stories so we can hear everybody else's.
That's right. Put these stories on the stage. And if you've ever thought that your life or maybe somebody in your family's life could be a play, well, now is the time to be able to make that into a reality. And you know, you might be sitting at home thinking, oh, I don't have a story to tell. Everybody has a story to tell. And we want to listen to, yes, we want to hear these great, amazing things that maybe you and your family have done, but we're also looking for things like, what was it like growing up in the 1950s? What was it like going to school here in the 1950s and the 1960s? What was the world like for you in the later 1960s? Heading into Vietnam, what was it like to sign up for selective service? What was it like to be a homemaker? You know, I read some of these old cookbooks. I see ingredients in there that you don't even find anymore. Mm-hmm. So what was it like? You know, what were the everyday tasks that you did that maybe you wouldn't get a building named after you or a street named after you, but you made your family better, or you made your neighborhood better, or you made your community better? What did you do, and what were those things? And who were your neighbors, and how did you all live?
And how rich and rewarding, I think, to be able to have that audience to share that story with, almost letting those people sort of relive part of that.
It is, and for our listening days, it's going to be a little different than our usual one-on-one interviews. We're inviting the community to come in and have kind of a listen in to each other. So as different people are being interviewed, we get to, you know, get a sneak peek into their lives and into their stories. And maybe that'll inspire somebody else to tell their story, or it might trigger another memory that somebody has, and they go, oh, I remember, and then I had this third grade teacher who, and more stories will pour out of that.
So it sounds like it's going to be a nice community conversation.
Really. It is conversation and story sharing, and we're going to have a couple of these. The first one is going to be tomorrow from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and we're going to have another one next Thursday, and we're hoping that this is going to kick off a whole series of listening days so that we can continue to be in conversation and be listening to each other, especially in these days where maybe we're not spending enough time listening to each other and maybe just waiting more for our turn to talk. Well, here you're going to have your turn to talk, but you're also going to have your turn to listen to your neighbor and see what's important to them and what makes them inspired.
And you know, there are so many classes on active listening, and yet so many people, you know, we are so, you know, thought about the moment and what we're going to say and how we're going to respond that we fail to actually hear what they're saying.
Right. We spend so much time thinking about how we're going to respond to something or when it's our turn to speak. And here, even if you don't think you have a story but you want to listen to a story, why, you can come in and you can listen to these stories that are going on. That's why it's called the Listening Project instead of the Talking Project. We're going to be hearing stories, we're going to be telling stories, and then we're going to do something with these stories. We're not just doing it for the sake of you sitting down listening, although there's great merit in that. But we're also going to take these stories and use them as a basis for the next community play that will be acted out by your friends and community members from right here in the Tri-Cities area.
And Jules, you guys have done something like this in the past.
We have. We've done 3 previous community plays that all started with stories. And now, if your story hasn't been on stage before, now it's the time to get your story up on the stage.
And those were very successful, if I remember, very well attended.
They were very well attended, and they really inspired people. And what's really great about these stories and these plays is instead of just following one character through the arc, the main character is this region, is the stories from this region, and they're presented in vignette styles. So there's a series of small vignette scenes that comprise this community. So we've got stories from all different kinds of communities, from all different kinds of people. And, you know, our youngest cast member the last time I think was 4, and our eldest was 81. So yes, multi-generational, multicultural, and your story belongs in it.
All right, well, they are ready to listen. Are you ready to talk and share your story? Listening days coming up, as she mentioned, tomorrow from 1 until 3, and then again next Thursday. That one happening from 10 until noon. For more information, too, you can always check out their website, McKinneyCenter.com.